Hello and welcome to How Would You Rate Your Pain? We will be exploring life, loss, love, and the power of resilience. I am Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Hello and welcome to another episode of How Would You Rate Your Pain? I'm Dr. Tiffany Bartell, your host, and I'm here with my friend Allie Haskew, who is not a stranger to the podcast.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you. I am happy to be here.
So we were on with Courtney from Focus before, and we talked about, body image and eating disorders and how to be like living in gentleness with our body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This time we are incorporating your love of reality TV
Yes.
and my love of documentaries and the work that we do to talk about the very controversial documentary on Netflix about The Biggest Loser.
Yes.
And I think it was titled Fit for TV.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how are you feeling? Because I remember texting you and you were like, I have complicated feelings. And I was like, ooh,
Yes.
me too. And we should talk to everybody about them.
Yes. Speaking of being gentle with our bodies, it is definitely the
Opposite.
opposite. Yeah. The opposite of it. And for me, growing up, I can remember being a little kid sitting on the couch with my mom, eating her dessert after dinner and watching episodes of The Biggest Loser. And that going on, I think it started in 2004. So I was in the 4th grade. And definitely went all through like my high school experience. And so
How many seasons did it have? I mean, it started in 2004.
17 seasons. So a
Wow.
lot of seasons.
Wow. Yeah.
And it became a whole cultural phenomenon. I mean, there were products being sold and
Jillian Michael, like her career took off.
Her career took off. Bob Harper's career took off. You really started to see this cultural change. I can remember Biggest Loser branded snacks in the grocery stores and things like that. And the early 2000s are pretty notorious for how they impacted relationships to bodies. So complicated feelings upon first watch. I've watched it a few times now, and noticing a lot of sadness, some anger. Of course, the therapist in me is like, that's not correct data or information. So also those pieces too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely took me on a journey, reflecting on the role Biggest Loser has played in a lot of people's lives and understandings of bodies.
Yeah, so for those who might have not watched it, I watched a little bit of it, but not very much because very quickly I was like, this makes me feel so bad. And then we know that I don't like yelling shows, and so there's a lot of yelling in that show.
There's a lot of yelling.
Lots of yelling, lots of crying. And so I was like, I feel almost like complicit in the like abuse that looks like it's happening. So it's complicated.
It's
for sure.
very complicated. I actually was reflecting on that as I was watching it recently, how there's a scene in the documentary, which also, I should say, I think this whole documentary should come with a massive trigger warning, and it's really interesting 100%. That it doesn't.
100%.
But there's a scene where Bob Harper, who is supposed to be the nice trainer, is really, I feel comfortable saying, verbally abusing one of the contestants on the show. And I remember watching that season, and I was reflecting on how I could remember, I think, being a kid and watching this with my mom and being like, yeah, she isn't working hard enough, and seeing it through the lens of,
because the way they portray it is very like only one perspective.
Right.
Only one perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, if you have a show that's like, look at these lazy, fat people who did this to themselves, they need to be bullied into submission, right? You're going to start absorbing that information and being like, it's young,
a sign of weakness.
Thin, attractive man is exactly right. Yelling at this larger bodied black woman.
Yeah.
Right?
Ooh.
So there's so many layers, many layers to it.
So maybe we should talk about what the show was. So the original show, The Biggest Loser, started in 2004, and the premise was that they were taking very large-bodied people and putting them on the show, and the competition was to see who could lose the most weight.
Yes. And it's interesting, over the course of the series, something that I thought about too was, in the first seasons, you're seeing people in pretty I would say commonly sized bodies, right?
Yep.
Because one of the reasons I think a trigger warning is really important is that I didn't know when I was in the 4th grade watching this, as you see the former contestants and the weights as they step on the scale, and more commonly are like, oh, that's how much I weigh.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's telling us about ourselves as we're viewing and watching.
But then as the seasons go on, everything has to get more intense and the stakes have to be raised and, you know, all of these things. And that's where you start to see body weight go up and up and up and up.
Well, and we see all their weights.
Yes.
When they're shown,
Yep.
you know, and then one of the things that really I think was upsetting to watch was they come in and they obviously to reduce, I guess, maybe the clothing, you know, pounds or whatever, they have, you know, people without their shirts on, and it's just like so vulnerable, so hard.
So an interesting thing about the clothes being on for the weigh-ins, I believe Danny Cahill, one of the former contestants, mentions this as he's talking about the surgery that he had for the loose skin later on, is he talks about how early on they were weighed, you know, without their shirts on, or if you're a woman and you're a sports bra.
Right.
And as the series goes on and they start to have loose skin, then they start to put compression shirts on. And I think that says so much about what they were trying to do. If we were concerned about, you know, making somebody feel comfortable on a scale, we would have let them have comfortable clothes on in the first place. But it feels like it's to gawk at larger bodies. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And then not telling the true story of weight loss, which extreme weight loss does include skin surgery.
Yes.
Which can be very painful, and it's not a straight line. You can have infections and you can have lots of complications, years even afterwards.
Yeah. And especially too, for major surgeries like that, we know that having healthy relationship to food and exercise and all these things are what helps you maintain recovery during those processes, right? And so if your body is depleted
going in,
like how many complications we're more at risk for a surgery like that.
Ooh. So you know, 17 seasons, and then just crop after crop of people being put through this show with the main trainers and a medical doctor, which we'll circle back to him. So fast forward to the documentary. What were some of your first initial reactions when you saw the documentary coming out?
I was excited. Of course, talking about food and body is one of my like favorite things to talk about. So I was excited from that standpoint, and I was really hopeful for a real like expose on it. Also for hopefully some content that was rooted in like, let's dismantle fat phobia. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Was that what I got? I don't know, which I'm sure we'll talk about more. I was also really excited because they did utilize Aubrey Gordon, who's one of the commentators in it, and she's so phenomenal. Goes by Your Fat Friend, and is
I love everything she does, by the way.
Oh, it's
Have you heard her podcast,
Maintenance Phase?
I love
Maintenance
that.
Phase is so great.
So funny and so direct and honest and just, expressing all the things that people need to hear.
Yeah, she was an invaluable part of this documentary. So I was really glad that she was brought on. Yes. She's really the only voice that's on there as a person in a fat body that was not either a contestant on the show or not someone with a desire to lose weight, which I think is a really interesting thing on the documentary itself. Yeah. But yeah, I was excited. I was really interested in what they were going to have to say. It's rare that you get a documentary like that where the producers are going to be willing to talk.
I was so shocked that they talked about it.
Yep.
I was really surprised to hear from some of the people who had been some of the experts on the show too.
Yes, me too. I was surprised that they were able to get as much of the original involvement to come on as possible. Bob, Dr. Huizenga. Yeah, not surprised Jillian didn't come.
Yes. So you know, I think I had hope that it would, give people a voice, a chance for justice. I don't know like how many of those objectives were really like met, but so how was it for you to like see former contestants coming on?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Of course, as I was watching it, there were some moments where it's like, oh yeah, I remember him or I remember her. Or honestly, that parts of that were the saddest part.
Yeah.
For me, hearing some of them, particularly the ones who had, well, I think actually all of them regained the weight that they had lost, except for maybe one.
Yeah.
And those who are in smaller bodies now were on GLP-1 medications.
And they talked about that.
They talked about it,
Yeah.
which was really interesting.
Yeah.
But hearing, I think both Ryan and Danny describe having been winners and then regaining the weight and the sense of failure
And shame
that came up. It was really heartbreaking. And personally, I thought you could still hear for a lot of them how they're still navigating the trauma and difficulty of their experience on the show, whether they label it as that or not.
Yeah.
Everybody's in their own journey and process with that.
Sure.
Suzanne, who's the former police, I can't remember her exact role in the police department, but pretty outright being like, this was traumatic and I wouldn't do this again.
Yeah.
And Joelle as well, but others being like, this was our faults. Like our bodies got to this point because it was our faults, right? And hearing
so
those
that conditioning and programming is still, it's and I think it's so fascinating in the work that we do as counselors is that the impact of what you're told, like you believe it,
right?
And then it becomes part of like that sense of self and others.
Yeah.
And so even if they gained the weight, all the messaging they were given, even if they thought the show was terrible, they're still living, it appears,
absolutely,
out of some of the messaging.
Absolutely. And that messaging started well before The Biggest Loser, right?
Yeah.
So,
right.
And actually, I think one of the...
And they preyed upon it.
Exactly.
In there.
Exactly. And I think one of the things Aubrey Gordon points out that is really, really relevant to the conversation is how, one, they weren't providing actual mental health care. They were having pseudo-therapists in Bob and Jillian, right?
Right.
And we know that particularly for clients that I might see with like binge eating disorders or eating disorders in general, right? Which very possibly could have been there for any one of these participants.
For sure. If they didn't have it before they got there.
Right, exactly. Those typically come with a lot of trauma. And so you have people navigating the trauma of being a person who lives in our culture in a larger body, which is a traumatic experience in and of itself. And then also their personal traumas that they're unpacking while at this ranch with sleep deprivation, seeing the same people separated from their support systems, and then having these two trainers
berating them.
Yeah.
And then there was like the competitiveness between the two. And, I will say in seeing the footage in the documentary from the show, I had forgotten how horrible it was to watch them exercise.
Yeah.
And they're like throwing up and falling over and saying they're going to pass out. But then it's being treated as like you're being lazy or you're trying to get out of, you're trying to manipulate, the situation. And you can tell like, they're feeling so ill.
Right. Yeah. They're training for, I want to say like 4 to 8 hours a day, eating.
Which isn't going to happen when they get out.
Right.
So there's that problem right on the bat.
Right, exactly. And then what a lot of people I think don't realize is despite being on this ranch, they were responsible for their own food. So, the caloric recommendation from the doctor might be 1,200 calories for women, 2,000 for men, which is still way too low.
Especially if you're working out that much.
Right, 1,200 calories a day is the necessary amount that a toddler needs for functioning. So we're already really low, but a lot of them were getting down to like 800 calories a day and working out for 4 to 8 hours, really intense exercise. I mean, that is tremendously difficult on the body. Tremendously difficult.
Yeah, it's abusive.
It's abusive.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that was very jarring to see that. And then they have the one contestant who had to be airlifted off the beach.
Yeah.
And that was alarming. Like, she literally couldn't move.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like, and I'm obviously not a medical doctor, but it looked like she could have died. If you're listening to How Would You Rate Your Pain, you're probably a person who understands the power of talking through the issues that we're going through. I'm really excited to let you know about BetterHelp, an online therapy platform. I'm not one of their therapists, but very thankful they sponsor this show. Wherever you are, BetterHelp will match you with a licensed therapist who can listen and help you through whatever you're going through. It's flexible and entirely online. Listeners of the show can get started with 10% off the first month by clicking the link in the show notes or by going to betterhelp.com/Tiffany Bartell.
Yes, she could have. So keep in mind, also not a doctor, but she experienced something called rhabdomyolysis, which is a really, really scary condition that can ultimately affect the kidneys, can lead to your body shutting down. It's a breakdown of the muscle tissue. And the realities of that are just like so tremendously scary. There's actually Ryan, one of the winners, talks about the day of the finale. He came back, they go home, they come back for this final weigh-in front of an audience, and they did all of his last testing, and they found that there was blood in his urine, and he referred to that from being tied to dehydration, which is entirely possible.
Because they don't want to have water weight when they get weighed.
He says he went home and did, quote unquote, the master cleanse, which is just hot water, lemon juice, and maple syrup and cayenne.
Oh my goodness.
And really what was probably happening was some of that rhabdomyolysis, some of that breakdown, citing Dr. Mike, a fantastic YouTube doctor who kind of explains all of this in his video on the Biggest Loser documentary as well. But I mean, you were watching people's bodies break down right in front of you, but because they were smaller, it seems like it's a good thing, right?
Right. They're healthier.
They're healthier because they're small. And
that's another misconception. I've had, fat clients before, and they constantly are getting these messages from their doctor that are unhealthy, and they don't have high blood pressure.
Right.
Their A1C's fine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They are maybe, struggling with something completely related.
Yeah.
They broke their finger, or something. And there's these assumptions that your health is worse than mine.
Yep.
And which is often not true.
Right. Right. Yeah. I let clients know if they're feeling nervous about perception of their health status when they come in. I let them know the size of your body tells me nothing about your health. Yeah. I have no data about your health status.
That's labs. That's something you do with another person you could tell me about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And even with labs, so much of our lab work is based on our genetics.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about the BMI today. We don't have enough time.
But boy, we can.
Yeah. So then, you have all of America and probably internationally watching these people, and there's some kind of I don't know, maybe idea that this is helping them when it could be giving them health issues they didn't have prior to coming on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even if you take the health issues out of it, right, we know that it is far more common to see an increase in body dysmorphia as a result of extreme weight loss. So yes, there's the physical ramifications, but also those mental ramifications. That come up as a result.
And those can last
a lifetime.
And so speaking of the medical side, let's talk a little bit about the doctor who was on the show. I think part of it I struggled with because he I think maybe sees himself as a little bit of a one of the people who really cared for them and was trying to make it healthy for them. But if you're participating in a system that's damaging, you're part of what keeps it going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there was a little bit of denial that might have been there. And I get it. I mean,
sure. You don't want to think about it.
Yeah, I can't imagine looking back on that and being, you know, I reflected on my experience just watching it and like
Yeah,
participating in
same.
that,
Even
right?
in what I watched, it's just like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
I helped them get ratings. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. And then you see him kind of try and justify, I think, a bit of the decisions that he made while also acknowledging something that I think is very real, which is the pushback that he received from the trainers. You know, Bob describes him as having a complex when it's like, no, he's just a doctor.
yeah, yeah.
He's just trying
He's
to
trying to
be
make sure no one
ethical.
dies.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the trainers and like other you know,
Like support professionals
yeah,
or
support
whatever we call
professionals,
them. Yeah,
he did seem to be the one who like maintained relationships
yeah.
with some of the participants. So you know, I think there is something to that. And also, like, you have this man who has been the trainer for the Raiders, who's working with high intensity athletes, working on them in their conditioning, who has this idea of, okay, we see these athletes doing 2-a-days and this is how their body responds to food and exercise. What if we do that for fat people and see what happens, right? It's like we are on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Not even.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's like a multitude of intersectionality that like makes us very different.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there was no doctors, ideally, right, are going to be thinking about what's sustainable. How do we create a lifetime of health and wellness with our patients?
And health for you.
Yeah. What does that look like for you on an individual basis?
At your developmental level, which changes.
Exactly.
I'm a middle-aged woman. Like, stuff changes.
Yeah. Looking at a person holistically and helping them find what works for them. And that's just not feasible here. I think he even says in the documentary, there is no way to make a show about weight loss that's safe. And so my response to that is, okay, why'd you do it?
Yeah, like, don't make the show.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something in hindsight, right?
Right.
Maybe that is not something he realized as it was happening. But
yeah.
He's a complicated figure.
For sure. And I think that, like, I get the thing, because I've heard people say this before, where they're in an organization that they don't align with and they're trying to make it better or trying to protect people in it or trying to whatever. And so, you know, I think I have a lot of like compassion for being in that situation and having to figure out what the right thing to do is. Still struggle.
It's tough.
Still struggle with him.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there is definitely cause to say you take an oath to do no harm.
Yeah.
Right?
And harm was done.
And I don't think
you signed off.
Right. And I don't think there's any way that we can try to package this that makes that go away.
I agree. And, you know, we hold licenses. They're not medical, but we hold licenses. And, you know, when you hold a license in something, and I think just being a good citizen too, you know, I think like there's empathy for when you get in a spot where you have to do a hard, good thing.
Yeah.
Or a right thing. Not even good, a hard, right thing.
Yep.
But then, like you said, we make a promise when we accept licensure that we will do the right thing.
Yeah.
Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's hard. And, you know, you talked about Dr. Mike saying no to, you know, financial opportunities vocationally. And I know I've done it. You've probably done it too, of just like, I can't be a part of that because I can't be a part of something that's like harming anyone or giving inconsistent messaging or could be like, you know, taken the wrong way and have harm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we make sacrifices to have the privilege of holding a license.
Yep. And I think can say too so much about beliefs about fatness, right? Because I can absolutely see somebody who leaves their fat phobia unchecked, particularly a medical provider, thinking, well, and again, this is not me speaking for Dr. Huizinga. I don't know.
Sure, we don't know him personally.
For him, but thinking, well, this is better than being fat.
Yeah.
Right? I'm actually helping them because being fat is so harmful.
Well, that's the premise of the show.
Yeah.
Is that we're saving lives. We're giving people their families back. We're giving families more years with their loved ones. Yeah. You know, and I think that gets to the very real sense, especially in this country, of, you know, that it is wrong, it's a moral failing, it's a character defect, you know, and I think, it just, probably one of the single most harmful things done in society in the past 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that one of the producers even mentions is we weren't looking for happy fat people. There are plenty of them. We weren't looking for happy fat people. We were looking for sad fat people. And
that's like admitting exploitation of a vulnerable population.
Is. Yeah. And at a time where, and we still do, need to see happy fat people existing, right? Because they're out there. And
bodies are so different. Yeah, and so
absolutely. And not everybody who's in a large body is upset about it. Right. Like that concept that if you are in a larger body, you must hate yourself is so predatory. It is founded on industries that want you to be self-conscious, so that you will buy more product, you will make more choices that allow them to put your money in their pocket. And of course they weren't going to monetize on a television show on people who were happy with their bodies.
Right. Well, you talked too about like the snacks that came out, the supplements that came out, the careers that were skyrocketed. And so I think, there's so much ethical and moral dilemma tied up in when we come out with supplements, or we come out with products or training programs or whatever, all these like get your beach body things, like all bodies go to the beach. Yeah. All bodies go to the beach. Yeah. All bodies go to bed. All bodies take a shower, like, like all bodies belong in all places.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not really the messaging we receive.
No. And we haven't even talked about the name of the show.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
The name, The Biggest Loser, right, has such a double meaning. Yeah. They're not just talking about weight loss.
They're all losers. We just want to like see who the biggest one is.
Yes. Yeah. And we're calling them losers, right? We're calling them a harmful and unkind name, and we're going to give them these temptations and challenges to set them up for failure, to see how big of a loser are you actually because of your body.
Yeah, like how gross are they?
How gross are they?
Yeah. Let's talk about, we talked about the temptation room before we started recording, and I think neither one of us remembered that from the show before watching the documentary.
Yep. Yeah, the temptations are, frankly, I think a pretty disgusting component.
It's very abusive and exploitive, and it's almost like a different way of human trafficking. Yeah, because we're putting people at a vulnerable thing and making them do things for the enjoyment and the recreation of others. Yep. So for those who might not remember it either, so the temptation room was you could go into the room, and then I think it was like whoever ate the most calories.
Yeah, so they would vary from time to time, the different challenges. The one that they specifically reference in the documentary is one where you come in and the room is set up with pizza, cookies, any number of things that they were not allowed to have on the ranch.
Right. Bad food.
Quote unquote bad food, yes. Yeah. And the incentive was, if you are the person who eats the most calories, you get to go home, see your family, and also have your trainer come to your home with you.
So they're all missing their families.
Yes.
So it's a reward for doing something that they've been told is bad and like gross and slovenly.
And then the kicker on that too is they still have a weigh-in at the end of the week, right? So and remember, weeks in TV time are not actually weeks. It might be a few days. And so they might eat the most calories, but then they might also go and weigh in and lose and go home and be kicked off the show, right? So the risks are really high, and most of these people, you hear them say like, this was my chance, my whole life was riding on this, right? So
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of money. They've been so conditioned to think that their lives are miserable because of their weight when you see them in like really unhappy and abusive marriages, like all of these things, and it's gonna fix my life. And so it leads to these poor people being in a room like crying over a piece of pizza because they don't know if they should eat it or not.
Because they already have that loyalty bind now.
Yep.
Because they've been told that it's bad and
Yep.
this is, you did that. That's what you got you here.
Yes.
And they have to do it on the off chance that they can stay in, but they might get kicked out, which would make that their fault.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
And then as the viewers,
yeah,
you're sitting there watching this person.
Not sure if you want them to or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And not probably not fully grasping the reality of the impact of this. And seeing them cry over their piece of pizza and probably thinking, oh, they're crying because they want that pizza so badly and they're trying not to. Right. And so it's giving this message of like, look at these.
They can't help themselves.
Yeah.
They're out of control.
They're out of control. They should never be able to trust their bodies around food. Right. Which is just completely the wrong message to be sending.
Yeah.
Right? Look at how hard these people are working on this show. That is textbook evidence that people in fat bodies probably have some of the strongest willpower around.
Absolutely.
Because of the amount of time and energy and effort most people have spent trying to lose weight.
Yeah, this wasn't their first rodeo.
No.
They'd probably been, I mean, some of them, I think, had most likely been dieting since childhood.
Absolutely.
Which means they had actually been conditioned to say no to something that makes your body run.
Yeah.
And categorize and have food noise and decision fatigue over what fuels us to stay alive and move in the world, from a very young age.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then, people who genetically don't have to think about that are somehow stronger and more determined and have more willpower.
Absolutely. And, the idea that one of the producers said, temptations happen in the real world. We need them to see how to handle a temptation.
Where does that happen?
Yeah, this is not a real life scenario.
Yeah.
There is never a time where somebody is experiencing, well, I don't want to say never, but more than likely not to have an experience where the option is eat this food or see your family.
Right.
Right? Like that's not a situation that occurs. What would have been more helpful is to say, okay, you're at a restaurant. Here are all the things you want. How do we have that and also make this meet your nutrient needs?
Right.
Right? How do we have both? But that's not an interesting TV show.
Yeah, boring. So one thing, I started with a personal trainer at the beginning of the year, and Trainer Joe, one of the first things he taught me, because I love to eat and I like to feel strong, and coming into my 40s, your body just changes, and I wanted to feel like really strong in my body again. And so I didn't have a lot of experience with strength training and weightlifting and things like that. So one of the first things we discussed was calories. In that, if you don't eat enough calories, you can't build muscle. And if you don't eat enough calories while you're exercising, then your body's just going to store everything. And nowhere in the conversation about calories is there like, make sure you're getting enough. You're exercising so much, you want to be building muscle. And that kind of gets to the bigger conversation about like all of these weight loss drugs. You're supposed to be eating a different way with that. Because it can also deteriorate muscles.
Absolutely.
The biggest muscle is your heart.
Right. Yes.
So,
and we know when our bodies are underfueled, what your body does as a way to compensate once it has fed off of your fat stores is your body starts to cannibalize itself. So it starts to feed on your own lean muscle mass. So not only are we not building the muscle, if we're highly restrictive, we're actually deteriorating the muscle that we do have. But that is a complicated factor with things like the GLP-1 medications where I like to describe it as some people are taking them as a way to have an eating disorder in a box, right? That is not true across the board. There are very valuable reasons to take those medications. They do help with some conditions.
That they were created for.
And you have to eat.
You have to eat, and you have to eat protein.
Yeah, you have to eat protein. There are ways that like it might be harder to get your food in because you're not as interested, right? And you have to eat. And you can, like in my experience working with people who are on these medications, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference for somebody who is still fueling their body. Maybe they're fueling it differently than they were before, but they're still fueling their body versus a situation where you're taking them in order to not eat. And I get it. like, I have so much empathy for that
Oh,
decision.
yeah, there's no judgment.
There's no judgment there.
There's concern,
There's
I
concern.
think, especially in
Yes.
our line of work, and I think there's so much suffering that can be involved.
Absolutely.
And that's what really kind of like catches a hold of me.
Absolutely. And there are ways to find support in that and have providers who can help you navigate it. I do feel concerned about a lot of medical negligence that's occurring. And what I mean by that is going to doctor's offices and just being given them.
Right. Or ordering online. Yeah.
With no extensive data collection for the specific person about any eating disorder relationships and histories, current relationship to food, that there like needs to be a real discussion about the medications prior to taking them. Yeah. And most people are missing that with their doctors. Not to say all doctors, but
but it's enough that it trickles into our offices.
Yes.
I think the other thing that really concerns me is weight loss surgery as kind of a option for so many people when we haven't given them adequate time to develop new coping skills. If they are like suffering from an eating disorder, then snipping their life jacket off, just feels really scary to me.
It creates higher rates of substance abuse and other maladaptive coping mechanisms. And that's the same thing with the GLP-1 medications, is if we're taking them and we're not learning, like, how do I actually work on my relationship with food? How do I actually...
What do I do when I feel anxious in general? Or sad?
How do I soothe my emotions without food? As soon as those medications stop, that behavior is going to start right back again as a way to cope. So it's an incredibly nuanced conversation that... is challenging to have because there's still the excitement of the, quote unquote new miracle drug.
Well, and I think that's why I really wanted us to have this conversation, is because, the altruistic, person-centered part of me believes that like maybe they were trying to do a good thing by having the documentary. Yeah. It's not clear to me that doesn't just inflict a little bit other kind of damage. Yeah. And I don't know if it really takes the conversation where it would be best for it to go. Seemed like there was a lot of self-justification and, well, we meant well and we tried, or, oh, I've learned so much now, and it's like, that can't be undone for any of the participants.
Yep. And there's still a lot of fat phobia in it. And I think that's the
so
part
much
that was really sad for me.
And jarring. Yeah.
Like that they're... you're again listening to these participants now who still are experiencing their own internalized fat phobia and verbalizing that. And, even one of the producers at the end being like, I would do it all again. I'd just take the money component away. And it's like, that's
you learned
your
nothing.
takeaway?
Yeah, you learned nothing.
That the problem was giving these people money. Like, give them all money.
That's the only part I would keep. That's the only part worth keeping.
Right. Change someone's life with $250,000. But
that would make a lot of people a little happier.
Absolutely. But the, that was the hardest part to me, I think, in watching it, is really, like I said, the only person in a fat body feeling positively about the body that they exist in that was on that, or is in that documentary, was Aubrey Gordon. Yeah. And that's sad.
Yeah, and she, has worked hard to be there and is already doing that good work in the world.
Absolutely.
So it had nothing to do with the show.
Right.
It almost felt in some moments like a tiny double down.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah. It didn't feel like they gave enough pushback. Like I wanted there to almost be a fourth episode where they brought in evidence and studies and things like that to combat.
Dispel the thing that you said didn't work. Dispel it and why, because, so people don't recreate it.
Right. They talk about the NIH study, right? And the issues with the way that the New York Times presented it. But what they don't talk about is like, that's because the New York Times presented it completely incorrectly.
Exactly.
And there's another video on that that's really interesting.
What's people reading? Are they reading the journals?
Right.
Where the research was published, or are they reading, something that's more accessible and public facing.
Right. And I'll be completely honest with you. I watched a video with Kevin Hall, who did this study, talking about the study. And I was listening to it. And I was like, what is this man talking about?
So we do need it to be translated.
Yeah. So like
Fair.
I can understand the New York Times getting it wrong. But the way that they're describing it is as if the whole study was wrong.
Yeah.
Not the presentation of the information being wrong.
Oh, that's so good. I feel like we have to do our own documentary on all the documentaries.
Yeah.
So as we're thinking about listeners, at home, and maybe they've watched the show or the documentary or both, what do you have to say to them? And what would you hope they would walk away from hearing our conversation with?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that probably the biggest part is just the complexity of fat phobia and how, when we were in 2004, it was really blatant and it was in our faces. And now we are at a point in time where it's still there. It's packaged differently.
Yeah.
Right. And so now is a good time to be looking at the ways that we're thinking, the ways that we're speaking, the content we're consuming, and really asking ourselves in another 21 years, which is wild to think about that 2004 is that long ago. Do we want to be looking back at this time and having those same reflections, right? Do we want to look back at this time and go, oh man, I was really absorbing this information that was really hateful towards other people.
And myself, maybe.
And myself, because we can start changing that right now. Right? You don't have to have a certain body to like your body. You don't have to have, resources certainly help, but you don't have to have all the resources in the world, right? Like there are things that we can do right now to start shifting relationships to our body. And if something makes you uncomfortable, if a piece of content makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to watch it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to absorb anything that makes you feel shameful about yourself.
I love that. Yeah. So it can start today, and it can start even just with taking a look in the mirror today and saying, I love you. I accept you. Yeah. You're beautiful. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for doing what I needed to do today. Yeah. And then, repeating that and reprogramming ourselves.
And even if that feels like too much, saying, I'm having a hard time.
Yeah.
It is hard to be in my body today.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes just acknowledging this is hard. And I'm also not going to do anything to try to change it.
Escape
right?
it. Yeah.
That we're allowed to have hard body days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And there are resources. There are people. There's support to help navigate this, and creating your circle that has those same values. Yeah. Is also so helpful.
So good. Thank you so much for being with us,
Of
Allie.
course. Thank you for having me.
Until next time.
Yes. A blast as always.
Thank you all for listening and watching. Be gentle with yourselves, and we'll see you next time. How Would You Rate Your Pain is a pop media production and is recorded at Wavelength Studios in downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee. Our set is designed by Mad Honey Rentals. Graphic design provided by Josh Wilhelm at JW Creates. Music is by Michael Crosa. This podcast is not intended to be taken as medical advice and should not take the place of regular therapy. If you have questions about your mental health, see a licensed clinical therapist. I'm Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at How Would You Rate Your Pain. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week for another episode.